I just looked at him and I was like, oh, did we make a mistake? Is this what it's going to be like every winter? Because I don't think I can do this every winter. This is our 8x24 tiny house on wheels. We moved into it in 2016, and we found out during our second winter that living in a tiny house during cold temperatures is very challenging, and there is a rather steep learning curve to figure out the tricks and techniques that you have to use to make living in a tiny house during the winter possible. And this is the story of how we went through the difficult learning process to figure all of those things out. At this point in the story, all of our pipes were frozen and things were getting worse quickly. I realized that in the whole process of freezing, one of the pipes that went into the hot water heater had broken and was now leaking, and as it was leaking, it was freezing. So we had an ice waterfall coming out of the back of our house. I remember I had to go to work that day, and there was nothing we could do about it. So there was just this waterfall of ice coming out of the back of the house. It was all frozen all the way down the side, like 3 feet of ice. And I called a plumber to come out to the house and look at it. And it was just a normal traditional plumber. I was thinking pipes are pipes, right? So a plumber should be able to look at that, figure out where the break is, fix it. So this person showed up at the house while I was at work. They gave me a call and said, oh, this is a trailer. This is not a house. I can't work on this. And by the way, it's a $50 service call. So even though I'm not going to touch anything on your house because it's a trailer, you still have to pay us a $50 service call because I showed up. And he proceeded to leave and sent us a bill, and there was still an ice waterfall coming out of the back of my house. At this point, we didn't have running water, our hot water heater wasn't working, and we were kind of making the best of it by getting bottled water, getting gallons of water, and I would heat it up on the stove, and then I could do dishes with it and that kind of thing. So we still had some functionality in the house. We couldn't wash our clothes, so we would go over to Patrick's parents' house to do laundry, and we would either take a shower over there or we went to the gym every day to take a shower. I remember getting done with my yoga class. I would work all day. I would teach a yoga class. I would leave the studio at about 8 o'clock at night, and then I would have to go to the gym on the way home. And I remember being so tired. All I wanted to do was go home, take a shower, and go to bed, but I had to go to the gym to be able to take a shower. So we were making it work. It was not easy. Neither of us were very thrilled with the situation, but it was about to get even worse. After I had washed the dishes that night, I went to dump the water down the drain, and the sink filled up. The water wasn't going down. We had a couple times actually used our camping shower. So just on those nights where I really didn't want to go to the gym, I would boil water on the stove. I would pour it into our Coleman camping shower, like a solar shower. I actually would hang it up in our shower in the bathroom, and you could take a pretty good shower like that, and it was hot water, so it was great. That was not going to work anymore because now not only were our pipes frozen, now the sewer line was frozen. So the sewer line is a lot wider, and when we were doing dishes and washing things and dumping the gray water down the sink, it froze. And now we couldn't do anything. We couldn't wash dishes, we couldn't take makeshift showers. We were stuck doing everything at the gym or at Patrick's parents' house. And this was the point where I remember being so frustrated and so defeated. I remember looking at Pat. We were sitting in his parents' living room with a pile of laundry that we needed to do, and I was tired and I just wanted to go home. And I just looked at him and I was like, oh, did we make a mistake? Is this what it's going to be like every winter? Because I don't think I can do this every winter. The good news is that that was probably the lowest point of our journey in tiny house living. we didn't really know how to really make sure that our pipes didn't freeze. We didn't have a hot water heater that was rated to these cold temperatures that we get sometimes, and sometimes for a long period of time. And we didn't have our sewer line wrapped with heat tape as well, because that also needs to stay free flowing. So these were all things that we learned the really hard way. And we eventually did get some warmer weather and our pipes defrosted. And then the longer process was figuring out we had to replace the hot water heater. It was broken because when everything froze, a lot of the internal components got broken. So we had to replace it with something else. The problem was that we didn't want to do the same thing. We didn't want the same problem to happen again. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be exposed to the outside where it would freeze. So it probably wasn't going to be something that ran on propane like our old one. We were probably going to switch to something electric. So I told you that a regular plumber refused to work on our house, and we ended up having to call an RV specialist. And you know, if there's a specialist, they probably cost more money, and that was definitely the case. The good news was that they were able to come up with a solution. We got a hot water heater with a tank. It's very small, so we don't get to take long, unlimited showers like we used to. And I definitely miss those days. I remember when a few weeks after this whole great freeze up, we finally got the new hot water heater installed, and I was able to take a shower, and it was 4 minutes. 4 minutes of hot water was all that our very small hot water heater could produce. And then you would have to wait when the other person had to take a shower. It takes about 20 or 30 minutes to heat up again. So there's a little bit of a delay if you both have to take a shower. So that winter was extremely trying, and it really changed a lot of what it was like to live in the tiny house full time, especially the shower situation, because a good hot shower is one of my absolute favorite things in life. Red's having a good time. Under here, somewhere, there it is. This is our sewer line. And there you can see our heat tape is wrapped around the sewer line, and that has helped to keep that going. Back here, this is our propane. Over here where it's actually closed off, that's where our original hot water heater was in there, and there was a grate here, so the exhaust from the propane would vent out, and that's what caused the problem. Because it was an on-demand hot water heater, it had to be vented outside. The cold air got in, it froze the pipes, there was water coming out from here, ice all the way down to the ground. It was just like this huge ice waterfall. It was crazy. But now that we have the electric hot water heater, it has worked quite well, although we've had to sacrifice and make it work with 4-minute showers. But a hot shower is better than no hot shower. At that point, we were already very much in the routine of going to the gym almost every day, because if we wanted to take a shower when we were waiting for our hot water heater to get fixed, we had to go to the gym. And that was probably about a month that we didn't have hot water here, so we always had to go somewhere else to take a shower. The good thing about that is we really did get in a great habit of going to the gym. If I was going to go to the gym to take a shower, I was probably going to work out because I was there, so why not? Even if it was a short workout. So we were in a good routine with that, and the showers at our gym were really, really nice. So most of the time I would end up showering at the gym anyway. The extra bonus that we found was showering at the gym cut down on the amount of moisture that we ended up with in the tiny house. Anybody who has lived in a small space, a cabin, an RV, or a tiny house in cold weather knows that condensation is a major issue. Most normal houses, you run a humidifier to try to put moisture into the air. In a small space, it's the opposite, because there's already such a high concentration of humidity from 2 people taking a shower, from cooking, from making coffee, from breathing. All of that puts a lot of moisture into the air. And what will start to happen after a while is you will have moisture running down your walls, and we definitely did. One of the unique things about our tiny house is that it has steel framing instead of wood framing. It saved us a lot of weight, and I really liked the idea of steel framing because it's going to make the structure more durable over time. We have metal roofing, metal siding, and metal frame, so I feel like that's going to give the tiny house pretty good longevity. The downside of that is wherever the steel beams are in the wall tend to collect condensation, and specifically in the corners. So in the winter, if it has been really cold outside like it is right now, and it's warm inside and I've been cooking like I have been today, there's a lot of moisture in the air and it will start to collect in the corners or in the walls or on the walls, kind of running down the walls. So we had to start periodically just wiping down the walls, and we hang these damp rid bags all over the house. There's one in each corner here, there's one by the door, there's one in the bathroom, there's one up in the loft, and these have really helped with collecting some of the moisture. We still have to be very careful, and periodically I will still have to wipe down the walls, especially when it's really cold like today. So we got in the habit of showering at the gym more frequently than we showered in our house because we would work out, and that was great. We both enjoy working out, and the gym that we went to was amazing. We loved it. It had beautiful showers, it had sauna, hot tub, steam room, all of the amenities, and we would really make kind of like a spa day out of it. And that unlimited hot water was definitely very motivating to me. So I got in the habit of showering at the gym regularly, and that was working out very, very well for us until the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, that was probably the biggest test of tiny house living next to the Great Freeze Up. We couldn't go to the gym anymore. I was out of work. We were quarantined in this very small space, and I was stuck with my 4-minute showers, and I had no other options. So it was one of those things that I was really okay with because of the fact that I knew living in the tiny house and having this lower cost of living was going to help us through kind of the rough period with the financial aspects of going through the pandemic and being out of work for a period of time. So it was definitely a trade-off. We really missed being able to go to the gym and shower, but luckily we had everything that we needed here within the house, and at that point we had worked out all of the things, so everything was actually working at that point, which made it really nice. Then the final challenge that I'll share with you that was brought to us by living in a tiny house during a global pandemic was that Pat and I were both recently sick at the same time. And it was a very unique experience because we were both home, we both didn't feel great, and we were in this very small space. We had to quarantine for 5 days. Luckily, we ended up testing negative for COVID, but it was a lot of together time in a very small space. And we travel in our RV. We've gone on 10-day road trips where we're in our 16-foot RV. So we're pretty used to being in close quarters together, but when you're sick, it's kind of a different experience. I will say that we have learned a tremendous amount from living in the tiny house over the past 6 years. The skills that we need to keep the tiny house running well, we've learned a lot about how to get along with each other in a really small space, because you have to keep the other person's needs in mind because your space and their space overlap so much. And I tend to be a person who has a lot of different projects going on, and I can spread out pretty easily. So I have to really be mindful of that and try to keep my mess kind of contained to my little area, because when you're in a tiny house, it goes from clean to looking like a bomb went off in about 30 seconds. So it's a constant process of trying to clean up and restore order back to our space. But all in all, we are very happy that we have been able to experience living in a tiny house. It has been so helpful for us through this period of time. And even with all of the challenges and all of the things that broke and that we had to fix and figure out, I know that we would definitely do everything again. So I hope that you have enjoyed this realistic look at what it's like to live in a tiny house, because it's not all rainbows and sunshine, and it's definitely not as easy as they make it look on Instagram. So we're going to create another video sharing what we've learned and what we would change if we had to do it again, if we had to have a tiny house built again. What would we do differently, and what do we know to be absolutely essential after 6 years of full-time living? So I hope you will subscribe and stick around for our future videos about living in a tiny house.
Well, you worried about you and me, the injustice, the next president to be, the news and what you hear, your career. It's time for you to face those fears, and it's all fair to be aware, and I'll be there, so don't be scared. Just take a deep breath of air, and 1, 2, 3 to 10, you begin to focus again, and though time flies, we'll have enough to realize this bigger than the both of us.